Right, so the problem I have with UFOs, well, I don't have a problem with UFOs. UFOs are perfectly okay. Unidentified flying objects. I suppose you could say anything that we don't know what it is that's flying through the air is a UFO. Doesn't have to be alien in origin, anything like that. Yeah, I'm sort of okay with UFOs. I do have a problem though with the assumption that it must be aliens. I have a big thing about flying saucers as well because, well, it's an odd shape for an alien craft. A craft that's gone through interstellar space that doesn't have to be aerodynamic. Is aerodynamic just for the last, what, couple of 100 kilometers of its journey. But it doesn't really need to be that aerodynamic because it's only got to land, doesn't it? And maybe take off again. It's interesting. So I don't think the flying saucer is the optimum shape really for a spacecraft that's going through interstellar space. It might be okay, as it comes through the atmosphere and stuff, but I don't know, It could be shaped like a brick when it's out in space, and there's probably a good reason for having something shaped that way. Make maximum use of space, things like that. And if you're going on a long journey, you're going to have a lot of supplies, aren't you? The other problem I have as well about aliens, I think it's wrong for us to assume a UFO is an alien at any point. It's probably the most distant possible, remotest solution it could be. The other problem I have with aliens flying to the Earth is, what are the bodies like? How do they survive the accelerations and decelerations and everything else? And the long periods in space. It's pretty tough. Now, if they're going to be a bit like us, well, that's a tough gig, isn't it? We're soggy, fleshy things. We're a little bit weak in many ways. We don't have a very strong skeleton. So yeah, squishy humans. I mean, you could argue the only reason we haven't gone extinct is because of our amazing intelligence and intellect. It's obviously a big advantage when you are squishy, weak lumps of flesh that really can't do much. We can't really travel vast distances, our legs are rubbish. We don't have the stamina or speed. We need huge amounts of food and water to keep going. We can't last for very long without it. And I think for most of our evolution, most of our history, predominantly we've been looking for food and subsisting. It's only relatively recently that our intelligence has enabled us to the position whereby, yeah, we can use machines and make food and have loads of food and become really fat and lazy. I'd like to put a positive spin on it. But yeah, fat and lazy, it's a hard one, isn't it? So in terms of us travelling out into space, our biggest problem is, well, where we live really. Very hard to leave the Earth's surface. The fastest aircraft ever made is the space shuttle. It's in Mach 25 as it powers into the sky and accelerates into orbit. Fortunately, the space shuttle doesn't run anymore. But yeah, that little 100 kilometers, shall we say, from the Earth's surface into space. Yeah, that's a tough 100 kilometers now. It needs a ridiculous amount of energy. The amount of energy that, it's probably hard to comprehend, to propel essentially a tiny bit of weight into space. But once we're out, once we're away, well, we don't need as much, do we? Once we get away from gravity and, yeah. So maybe if aliens did come to see us, well, firstly, I'm a big fan of the unmanned probe, that they might send a probe to see us, as opposed to, well, physically being here. I think we're starting to see now the power of, computers and technology, so you don't actually need to be in a place, you can see it online, you can have virtual experiences. So yeah, they could send a probe, but I think they'd probably do that first, wouldn't they? And maybe the probe will be pretty secret. Maybe they wouldn't want to announce their presence to everybody, cause mass hysteria. I mean, the probe could be shaped like, I don't know, meteorite. That's a good idea, isn't it? A bit of space junk. Well, if they know we've gone into space, then yeah, that'd probably wash, wouldn't it? Something that's been floating around in orbit around the Earth that's found its way to hitting it. And I suppose the other thing as well is the probe doesn't have to return home. It might, explode or whatever eventually. But maybe send a signal back to base, back to wherever it came from. Yeah, I can believe that could happen now. That might explain some strange objects doing strange things in the sky. Yeah, okay, I might be open to that. But aliens coming here? I suppose if you imagine that their world, either they've got such fantastic technology or intelligence or something, I don't know, but they've the ability to leave their planet a lot easier than we have. I have a few problems with that, because that would imply that they don't have much gravity. So if they don't have much gravity, I wonder what they actually look like. Would they be really heavy? Big, bulky creatures who, have like a fifth of the gravity of the Earth, so they're 5 times heavier, so they don't leave the planet they're on. Oh my God, I don't know if I like this idea. But then, that's okay, they can get off the home world. But once they get into space, they've that extra weight, haven't they? And then when they get to the Earth, it's a disaster, isn't it? They're really going to make a big crater when they land, aren't they? So I don't know, that doesn't really wash either. I'm also of a concern as to how far we can engineer and use science to really push the laws of physics. I wonder how far we can really, really take it. There are limitations, and we see those limitations in different sciences, but physics is always the one that seems the most relevant, especially when you're in a vehicle or a vessel and you're moving around. It's yeah. So I mean, a car's a good example. Inertia, overcoming inertia, just getting moving takes a huge amount of energy. Just to get the thing going. Obviously, once you get a bit of weight and a bit of momentum behind it, then it does help. But yeah, that initial just getting a thing from stationary to moving, it's a big deal. Yeah, it's hard. And I just feel that, what could they possibly have that they can use that gives them that ability and that power to do such amazing things? Like crossing space, vast distances, like coming to a planet like Earth. I mean, we do stand out. I think we stand out. We look like a little blue, shiny marble in the vast greyness of space. There's some pretty ugly-looking planets and moons out there. They don't look as we're a looker, all right. And even if you didn't know the science behind the colours that we have, if you didn't know about water and light and things like that, which you probably certainly do if you're coming this far. You'd still know we were special. You'd look at the planet and go, I wouldn't mind having a bit of a nosy down there now. Have a look at that. It looks quite interesting. And I get that. And I still believe, though, it's easier to send a probe, a lump of metal, a lump of some substance that isn't a life form. But, as enough to record the information you need and send it back home, And I just wonder when they get that information, they're so technically advanced, they manage to send us this probe and it gets to us, and they get the information back, 1 billion years later, maybe we've died out by then, and they look at it and go, oh, and then they work out how much effort it's going to be to get there, and they go, do we really want to go there? Is it really necessary? And I suppose the only scenario that I could possibly imagine is if their own world was dying and the Earth was their only hope.